The snow fell softly in the great German forest, clinging to the dark pines like a shroud. It was a cold, silent world, broken only by the sharp commands of the Roman officers and the stamping of thousands of booted feet. General Maximus Decimus Meridius sat tall on his horse, his breath turning to mist in the frigid air. He was a man made of iron and duty, his face weathered by countless campaigns, yet his eyes held a deep warmth. He was not a man who loved war, but he was a man who loved Rome, and his soldiers loved him for it. They would follow him into the heart of any storm, through the mud and the blood, because they knew he would never ask of them what he would not do himself. The signal came, a distant horn call that echoed through the trees. The barbarian horde charged, their wild cries tearing through the quiet of the morning. Maximus raised his hand, a simple gesture of command that sent a wave of calm through his ranks. He was the rock against which the savage tide would break. He spoke to his men, his voice clear and steady, reminding them of their homes, their families, and the great civilization they defended. He spoke of the honor in their task and the strength that lay within each of them. His words were not of conquest but of protection, a promise of peace that could only be won through this final, terrible battle. The clash of steel was deafening, a brutal symphony of violence under the gray sky. Maximus was in the thick of it, his sword a blur of silver as he fought alongside his men. He was more than a general, he was a brother in arms, sharing their danger and their struggle. He saw the courage in their eyes, and it fueled his own. They fought not for an emperor they had never met, but for the man who led them, the man who knew their names and respected their sacrifice. Victory was hard won that day, paid for in sweat and blood, but as the enemy finally broke and fled, a sense of profound relief settled over the weary Roman legion. Later, in the flickering torchlight of the command tent, the aging emperor, Marcus Aurelius, came to him. The emperor looked frail, his face etched with the heavy burdens of rule, but his gaze was full of wisdom and affection for his most trusted general. He saw Maximus not just as a soldier, but as a son. He spoke of his dream, a dream of Rome, not as an empire of endless conquest, but as a republic returned to its people. He asked Maximus to be his protector, to carry this dream forward and ensure that power was given back to the Senate. It was a sacred trust, a weight far heavier than any sword, and Maximus, a humble farmer at heart, accepted it with a solemn nod. The emperor's son, Commodus, watched from the shadows, his heart a cold knot of jealousy and ambition. He had always resented the bond between his father and the celebrated general. He saw the respect in the soldier's eyes for Maximus, a respect he felt he could never command himself. When he learned of his father's plan to pass over him, to entrust the future of Rome to a common soldier, his resentment festered into a dark and murderous rage. Power, he believed, was his birthright, a prize to be seized, not a responsibility to be earned. The dream of a republic was a threat to his own selfish desires, and he would not let it come to pass. The betrayal was swift and silent. In the quiet of the imperial chambers, with the weight of a father's disappointment heavy in the air, Commodus committed the ultimate sin. He smothered the gentle emperor, stealing the last breath from the man who had given him life. He then emerged, his face a mask of false grief, and declared himself the new emperor of Rome. His first act of power was to summon Maximus. He offered the general a place at his side, a hollow gesture of friendship, but Maximus saw the lie in his eyes. He saw the coldness where his father's warmth had been, and he knew, with a sickening certainty, what had happened. He refused to pledge his loyalty. Commodus's fury was terrible to behold. He condemned Maximus as a traitor, blaming him for the very crime he himself had committed. The general who had just won a great victory for Rome was declared its enemy. Praetorian guards, loyal only to the new power, seized Maximus and sentenced him to execution. But Maximus was a fighter. He managed to escape his captors, wounded but driven by a desperate need to reach his family, his wife and son, on their farm in Spain. He feared, correctly, that the new emperor's vengeance would be cruel and would not stop with him alone. The race against time was a torment, every league he traveled filled with dread. The journey ended in ashes and despair. When he finally reached his beloved home, he found only smoking ruins and the devastating proof of Commodus's cruelty. His family was gone, murdered by the new emperor's command. The world fell away from Maximus. The strong general, the man of iron will, collapsed under the weight of a grief so profound it stole the very light from his soul. He had lost everything: his emperor, his honor, his family, and his freedom. He was found by slave traders, a broken man wandering in a daze, and was sold into the brutal world of the gladiatorial games, his identity buried, his past erased. Chains were a new kind of enemy, cold and unforgiving. Maximus, now just a nameless slave known as the Spaniard, was taken to a dusty provincial arena in North Africa. He was thrown into a harsh new life under the tutelage of Proximo, a former gladiator who saw only profit in the lives of his men. The other gladiators were a rough and desperate lot, men who had lost everything just as he had. Among them was Juba, a Numidian hunter who, like Maximus, carried the pain of a stolen family in his heart. In this pit of despair, where men were trained to kill for the entertainment of a crowd, a strange and unexpected friendship began to grow between them. In his first battles, Maximus was a reluctant fighter. He fought with a cold, efficient skill, but without the bloodlust the crowds craved. He dispatched his opponents quickly, almost mercifully, refusing to play to the theatrics of the arena. This strange dignity puzzled Proximo and intrigued the other gladiators. He was not fighting for glory or for the roar of the crowd. He was simply surviving, one day at a time, lost in a fog of his grief. Juba saw the honor that still lived within the broken man and stood by him, teaching him the ways of this new, brutal world and sharing stories of his own lost home. As they were taken to fight in the Grand Colosseum in Rome, something within Maximus began to shift. He saw the face of Commodus on coins and heard his name praised in the streets. The fire of vengeance, long dormant, began to smolder once more. He realized that the arena was not just a pit of death, it was a stage. If he could win here, in the heart of the empire, he could win the people. He began to fight with a purpose, his movements a perfect blend of a soldier's discipline and a warrior's fury. He fought not as a slave, but as the general he once was, leading his fellow gladiators in formations, turning chaotic brawls into displays of tactical genius. His fame grew with every victory. The crowds, initially hungry for simple butchery, became captivated by this mysterious gladiator who showed mercy to his defeated foes. He would spare a man's life with a defiant look toward the emperor's box, an act of rebellion that resonated deeply with the Roman people. They began to cheer for him, to call his name, to see him not as a mere entertainer but as a symbol of something more. He was the honorable warrior in a corrupt world, the merciful victor under a cruel emperor. He was gaining the one thing Commodus craved but could never truly have, the love of the people. The gladiator's growing popularity became a thorn in Commodus's side. The emperor could not kill this crowd favorite without risking a riot, yet he could not allow this symbol of defiance to live. In the halls of power, others were watching. Senator Gracchus, a staunch supporter of the old republic, saw in Maximus the spark of hope he thought had been extinguished with Marcus Aurelius. He recognized the general beneath the gladiator's dust and blood. He understood that Maximus's connection with the people was a weapon more powerful than any legion. A dangerous plan began to form, a conspiracy whispered in the shadowed corridors of the Senate. Gracchus secretly met with Maximus along with Lucilla, the emperor's own sister, who despised her brother's tyranny. They spoke of restoring the Republic, of fulfilling Marcus Aurelius's final wish. They would use Maximus's fame to rally the people and his old legions still loyal to their former general to overthrow Commodus. For Maximus, this was a chance to find a purpose beyond mere revenge. His personal vendetta could be transformed into a noble cause, the liberation of Rome. He agreed to become the figurehead of their rebellion, to risk everything one last time for the dream of a free city. The plan was daring and fraught with peril. Maximus was to escape from the gladiators' barracks with Proximo's help and rendezvous with his loyal soldiers waiting outside the city. From there, he would march on Rome, backed by the Senate and the will of the people, and force Commodus from power. Every detail was meticulously arranged, every player assigned their role. For a brief moment, it seemed that hope might truly triumph. The spirit of the old Rome, a spirit of honor and civic duty, felt alive again, carried on the shoulders of a disgraced general, a disillusioned senator, and a courageous noblewoman. But betrayal is a poison that seeps into even the most well-laid plans. Commodus, ever paranoid, sensed the conspiracy. He used his spies and the threat of torture to uncover the plot. Just as Maximus was about to make his escape, the Praetorian Guard stormed the barracks. His allies were arrested, his fellow gladiators slaughtered, and his last chance at freedom was violently torn away. Maximus was captured and dragged before the emperor, beaten but not broken. Though he was once again in chains, his spirit remained defiant. He had faced death many times, and he did not fear it now. He knew his legacy was secure in the hearts of the people, a symbol of courage that would outlive any emperor.